I would say it's my faith. My faith is serves as the reminder to remember self, to take care of self, because you can't pour from an empty pot, right? If you don't take care of yourself, it's going to be hard to take care of anyone else. So definitely utilizing my faith and prayer and just, to say when I'm feeling overwhelmed, it's like, okay, let's pray, let's count, let's really think about and process what's going on. And spending time by myself helps that. It's sometimes just to sit in quiet or to sit and listen to music, go back and read some old sermon notes or scriptures helps. Even going back sometimes to read poetry that I've written in the past. And then also I have a group of Sister Dots who help me to reflect as well, and also to serve to say, you need to check in, center yourself, you're doing a lot. So it's remembering that. So it's a individual, but also collective process of coming back to self sometimes, because for those of us who pour out a lot, sometimes we need a gentle reminder to it's time to go sit down and refill.
This is a Lirae Journey podcast on the McKissick Health Podcast Network. I'm Dr. Sherella Cupid, your host.
The Lirae Journey podcast is a space for Black women to choose themselves. For season 3, the theme is Love and. We will continue the Sister Circle conversations with Black women from different stages of life within various roles regarding personal, community, and professional. The intention of the season is to continue and start conversations on the meanings, experiences, and practices around love in numerous areas. This is our grounding season. Because Lirae means love is real and eternal. So sis, let's practice love.
So today, I'm really excited to be in conversation with one of my sister docs from back in the day, as we say. Well, it feels like back in the day, because time really hits different now, post-2020, right? So today we have Dr. Shawntay Stocks in conversation with us. So Dr. Stocks, can you introduce us to yourself in a couple of sentences, please?
Sure. So I am a mother, wife, scholar, community member. I like to think of myself as an artivist, as a person who is interested in the upliftment of the community, but also specifically loving and learning about Black culture, Black history, and Black community. And I'm also a JEDI practitioner, which stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and Accessibility. And of course, the B is added for belonging.
Thank you, Dr. Stocks. And can you share with our listeners what brings you to the Sister Circle space?
Well, one, loving the topic, supporting a sister doc, and being able to share about myself and my work.
Thank you. So if you could name the season of your life, what title would you give it?
I thought that was such a great question. So I thought about it, and I would say settled, because I'm in my 40s, and I've already, of course, experienced a number of life happenings. And so I feel definitely grounded and settled, but also still searching, because I'm a lifelong learner. And so I'm learning through the eyes of my child. I am learning through the eyes of other students in which I engage. So, and I'm also learning in terms of reading. So even though I am settled and grounded, I'm still yet searching, and I'm about to experience yet another transition in life. And so I know that there are more twists and turns to come. So I would say settled, searching, and growing.
Okay, settled, searching, and growing is how you would
Mhm.
title this season.
Yes.
So within this title, how would you define love in this season of your life? As you are settling, as you are searching, as you are grounding yourself, how would you define love?
Love is a part of the root of the tree. So love is also a part of the grounding. Love gives you the support and the wings to help you seek, to help you search, to know that there is continual growth to do. Because love reinforces, love reifies, love also challenges when needed. So I would say that love being an active verb is doing all that and helping me to continue these things.
So, in thinking about love as, like you said, it's grounding, it roots, it challenges, what are you
Mhm.
unlearning concerning love and artivism?
So that love does not have to be sacrificial, right? We don't have to put ourselves on the cross for anyone. You know, God already did that for us. And that love that has the detrimental aspects for you is not the type of love that you need, because love isn't going to have us harming ourselves. And then in terms of artivism, what I am unlearning is that my definition of artivism and art doesn't have to be another person's definition of art and whatever they think would have been or will be successful. So I have to lean in more to my own love of my art.
And can you share how you are defining artivism? How are you leaning into this love of your art?
So I'm leaning into it. And sorry, my allergies got my eyes running over here.
Mhm.
So I'm leaning into it in terms of, well, first, I have to make more space for my art. My life has been so full of life been lifing, that I haven't been doing my art enough. So I consider poetry my sacred kind of art, and how I process life, how I deal with life, um, just processing emotions, even when I was pursuing my PhD, I wrote poems about qualitative research. I wrote poems about theory. I wrote poems about the experience. So poetry has always been a way to filter, to process, and also to challenge in reading others and writing my own. So in terms of the artivism right now, I would say getting back to me has been an important part of my artivism lately, because we also have to have that art for self, not just expression, but growth. So
And within returning to yourself, how do you define yourself within world viewpoints? Do you define yourself, for example, as a womanist? Like, how are you defining yourself within that?
I would definitely define myself as a womanist. I would define myself as a person who loves all cultures, but I definitely lean into learning about Black cultural practices, about Black history and Black culture, and being a woman in this, and womanist in that means not just respecting it, but also passing it on and being able to share that with Black youth, Black communities. That's important. And also supporting others who are doing it already, supporting sisters and brothers who are doing this work, and helping keep Black communal knowledge current in terms of passing it down to future generations, so that we continue to know. Because if we don't know of our past glories, it's hard to even envision future glories.
Thank you. That's beautiful. So, in thinking about this intergenerational exchange, right, the importance of passing down community knowledge in regards to supporting youth, what are you learning concerning love and artivism in this space?
I am learning, and I would say definitely some of the youth are teaching me different ways to look at what I would say, maybe even at myself, but also different ways to look at today's society. Um, that is something that I'm learning to just sit back and listen, because their filter is definitely not my filter, and I don't always understand. So I have to definitely listen more. And even in my definition of womanism and thinking about gender, specifically in the Black community and in gender at large, even my understanding in the ways in which I would want to pass down what it means to be a womanist, making space for the generations that have come after me, for their expression of what it means to be a woman, and what limitations they don't put on themselves, or what definitions that they don't put on themselves. So prescribed notions of what it means to be a woman is definitely been changing, of course, as always, as culture changes, but even just in watching art, what people say as art in different ways. So, did I answer your question?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
It's your truth, sis.
It's it is, and it's ours. So there's a communal, there's a personal understanding. So I would say there's a personal truth, but then there is a communal collective truth in which, because we are a part of a community that we see happening as well. And the generational truths that's like inside of the communal truth is very interesting, because when I think about how my foremothers would say, this is art and this is womanism, and how I would say it. And then if you would ask my daughter's generation, there's difference. And then thinking about representation and what we see and how we think we are supposed to be or enact in terms of our art, in terms of representation, it's quite different. And so that's a journey. It's interesting to watch and it's interesting to experience, because when you ask about love and when you have children and you see your heartbeat walking outside of yourself, and you have a way that you want that heartbeat to be, but you had to let that individual blossom in the way in which they are blossoming, because you, through love, set foundations, and you, through your lived experience and how you're walking about, you show them how to be. So between what they've seen and how they've been grown and nurtured in love and what they're experiencing, in their schools and community, you just got to have faith that they're walking it out well.
So I think you brought up major like themes in that in regards to personal truth and community truth and being a mother. And thinking about, for example, like you said, you provide your daughter with a foundation and you're also a model for her, and the youth is also a model for you. Are there any like reoccurring themes that you see that you think needs to be maybe conversed more, uplifted more, and thinking about these intergenerational differences that you're seeing?
Um, I think people are talking about these things often, lots of things. It's just a matter of being plugged in to the different ways in which there are so many means of expression between YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, like all of the different social media. So there are so many discussions happening. It's just a matter of where we are plugged in. And I think some of the discussions that are happening now, especially, is still around colorism, which is so I'm older but younger when I think about some of my aunties in their 70s. But the fact that colorism is still such a thing and still so real, and it's still within specifically the Black community, the Black woman identifying community too. So to hear young people still perpetuating stereotypes about darker skinned Black women versus quote unquote lighter skinned Black women, for me, it's just tiresome. And as such, I'm like, we're still doing this because we've been doing it so long. And there's a term, the light skins, and I'm like, can we not have that anymore? Like, why are we having this conversation still? So it's a conversation that is happening, but hopefully when people hear it, it will be unpacked. That's the thing. And I work with, when I hear youth in my presence talk about that, I'm like, let's unpack this. What stereotypes are you perpetuating? What do you mean when you say this? Because all spectrums within the Black community are beautiful. So what are we doing to ourselves when we say this? Like, oh, I'm just kidding. Words have power. So
Okay, I would agree. Colorism is definitely an ongoing discussion that's needed to be had. And in thinking about the ways in which evilisms, we think about stereotypes, the way it perpetuates generationally, intergenerationally, and looking at the youth in these conversations that you are having, what would you offer younger sisters concerning poetry and artivism?
Well, I would step away from colorism specifically for this conversation in terms of what I would offer them is that in terms of poetry, but whatever their art is, right? Mine is poetry, whatever their art is, to be it visual art, to be it dance, whatever medium it is, whatever calls to your heart repeatedly that wakes you up and you just have to get it out, lean into that. Others might not understand it, but whatever you are passionate about that continually calls you, find a way to do that because that's your heart telling you that this is important to me. This is how I process. This is how I interpret life. This brings me joy. Others may not understand it, especially some of our elders, as they are thinking in terms of this is going to make money versus this. Like, there are ways to find to make our passions entrepreneurial as well. And if it's just something that you do just to do for you, that's fine. But don't let someone take away your art or your pursuit of your art.
And then thinking about offering that, like, don't let anyone take away your art in pursuit of your art. And you said that you're also in a season of returning to yourself. Is there something in particular that you would say you're intentional about reclaiming?
Woo, you and your questions, they're good. Intentional about reclaiming more time to practice. That's what I do. I need to be more intentional about reclaiming more time to practice it, to write, to read the writings, because as I said, life be lifing and not making enough time to be intentional about writing. So as I'm returning to writing and rereading some of my old work and thinking about where I was, because I like to put a date on it so that when I go back into my own life archive, I can be like, oh, I remember that. Some of the poems at different particular times that are in conversation of what I was experiencing at that time. So, yeah.
You uplifted the point in regards to some intergenerational differences in regards to what we produce, right? So the importance of producing something for yourself, to just produce something for yourself without the intention of
Mhm.
profitable gains on it, which may be in contrast to older generations. So in thinking about that, for example, are there any conversation you believe that we should be having concerning artivism and womanist entrepreneurship, womanist practices with older generations?
Hmm. Mm, not necessarily. The older generations could sit back and learn. I mean, each generation has a lot to teach, right? And also a lot to learn. I think in our community, with respect to our elders, there was a lot of, you know, this is the way, this is how it's done, this is the steps to success, and there are multiple roads and paths that lead to whatever that definition of success is. So I think it's just more of because some people are particularly staunch or stuck in their ways. So it's more of listening and saying okay, but also doing what's best for you. That's just a life thing that one will have to do because some people will not change, nor will they understand necessarily. So each of us have to walk that path. But I would say for those who are doing the work for themselves to save that space, for those who want to do it for community engagement, for community change, there's that space. So thinking about the multiple spaces and that it's okay to have art for self, that it's okay to have art for engagement, and that if you want to make that a particularly monetized association, there's that space as well. And there's ways to pass down the benefits of that intergenerationally. So it's just a matter of people sitting down and listening and being open to learning from each other.
How do you inspire people to sit down and listen?
I don't know if I inspire people to sit down and listen. I would say it's more of just my own practice, like I don't know if I can inspire people, but just in terms of creating spaces is a way to do it. Creating the opportunity for intergenerational conversations is an opportunity, or be it the workshops that we do and we invite, you know, women of all ages to that's creating the space for it. But yeah, I think that's an individual thing that folks have to pick up outside of these workshop spaces or academic spaces.
Okay, so a personal life practice outside of the spaces that you create.
Hmm.
Okay, I've been in community with you enough to that I can say I believe you do inspire people to listen and be self-reflective. Whether or not they engage in it post workshop or post retreat is another question, but I can definitely attest to the workshops that you put on, the ways in which you practice art as a tool for education, a tool for learning, personal development. I think it does inspire folks to listen, especially when people already enter the space with a mindset of, oh, I'm coming to learn something that I
Hmm.
didn't know before.
Thank you. I can see the inside. I was thinking outside of those created spaces. But thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and we've also been in conversation with mothers and aunties within our families. And when you ask certain questions, you're like, oh, can you tell me this? Think that when you invite people to share their lived experience, that also in turn helps them to listen because someone is willing and open and wanting to learn from their lived experience too.
Mhm.
So in thinking about your primary roles, right? You introduce yourself as a mother, a JEDI practitioner, an artivist, a scholar. How do
Life.
you, a wife?
Christian. There's a lot of identities in there.
There's a lot of identities, a lot of roles that you manage, right? And thinking about all of those primary roles that you exist in, what is a reminder to yourself to circle back to feel grounded?
I would say it's my faith. My faith is serves as the reminder to remember self, to take care of self, because you can't pour from an empty pot, right? If you don't take care of yourself, it's going to be hard to take care of anyone else. So definitely utilizing my faith and prayer, and just, to say when I'm feeling overwhelmed, it's like, okay, let's pray, let's count, let's really think about and process what's going on. And spending time by myself helps that. It's sometimes just to sit in quiet, or to sit and listen to music, go back and read some old sermon notes or scriptures helps. Even going back sometimes to read poetry that I've written in the past. And then also I have a group of sister docs who help me to reflect as well, and also to serve to say, you need to check in, center yourself, you're doing a lot. So it's remembering that. So it's a individual, but also collective process of coming back to self sometimes, because for those of us who pour out a lot, sometimes we need a gentle reminder it's time to go sit down and refill.
Ashe, sis, Ashe. I ask this question to everyone.
Hmm.
How do you know someone loves you?
That goes back to the action, because it's love is an action word. So I feel heard and understood, supported. I feel that that person has listened, that they've been thoughtful. They're not trying to force me into any prescribed anything that they have for me, but They are looking for me to look for what works best for me. And also to, again, give me that gentle reminder, showing me the misstep, because that is also important because we're human. So, and then willing to work through things. If we fall down, it's like, okay, where did we miss? How did we get our signals crossed? So for people willing to give space, I'm like, need some time, we'll come back and go do what you need to do. So that's how I know that I feel loved. There are times when sometimes I didn't even know I needed something and people show up and I'm just like, oh, I didn't even know I needed that. But because they have paid attention, they listened, and then it shows up, whatever it is, it's not on, it could be a word, it could be an email, it could be a text. Those feel loved.
Thank you.
Mhm.
When do you feel like you're loving yourself the most? And I invite guests to think about their senses, right? So what does it feel like, look like, sound like, taste like, all of those things, and thinking about when do you feel like you're loving yourself the most?
When I remember to make myself a priority, when I remember to sit down each day and to say, okay, what has been the me time this day, checking in with me. And I feel like the spirit calls me on it because I'm a producer. So I'll make lists, I'll make to-do lists, and I'll be so excited when when I'm checking all these things off my to-do list. And then the spirit will be like, did you journal today? Have you prayed today? Have you checked into your personal to-do list? And I'll have this long gotta do list for other reasons. And I have found that I often put my own to-do list at the end of that. So when I'm loving myself, it's a day that's balanced. It's a week that's balanced when I've been able to do what I'm supposed to do for professional and familial reasons, but then I'm also able to say that, oh, yes, I did this for myself. That was a goal for me. And sometimes it's really small, sometimes it takes steps, but when I'm able to create that balance where I am centering myself as often as I need to, and also feeling proud when I don't overextend and I listen to my boundaries because I can be an overextender. So when it's not always comfortable to say no and I put up boundaries and I center self, but when I do, that feels good to be like, I really wanted to do X. I really wanted to support this person, but I just really had to go somewhere and sit down. Whatever it is, that part feels good because you teach people how to treat you. And if you continually overextend yourself, exert yourself, it becomes an expectation that you will just do even when you may not be feeling great.
You brought up an amazing point in regards to teaching people how to treat you and the importance of boundaries.
I am not crying. I have this leaky eye because of my allergies.
It's all good. It's all good. So, in thinking about practicing boundaries, which connects to another episode with Dr. Tasha Ely Kelly, she talked about learning boundaries as well and not
Mhm.
seeing as though boundaries doesn't mean like I don't love the person. It actually means like, no, like I'm practicing self-respect and this
Mhm.
communal respect. What are you learning about love and the ways in which you're now saying like, oh, I need to practice boundaries so I don't overexert myself?
So what am I learning about loving? The folks that love me understand that. And they're like, of course, take care of yourself. When their love is a two-way street, it's not all about, excuse me, what I can do, I haven't done for them. It's like, okay, no, you need to go sit down somewhere. It's okay. I know you love me. I know you support me. Go ahead and take care of yourself. So rather than being upset that, they might be a bit disappointed, but it's more like, oh no, you need to. And then they come back with, well, how can I assist? Is there anything I can do necessarily for you? So I found that to be some of the in terms of feelings of love and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Mhm.
You referred to yourself throughout this episode as a poet. Can you share your poet name with us? And also, what brought you into like being a poet? Like, what was that journey like for you?
What brought me into being a poet? I don't know. I've just always, since I can remember, once like really learning how to write as far back as elementary school. It wasn't always poetry. I used to write short stories. I remember the first time I got in trouble in middle school, it was because I was writing a play. And then we were going to take the play from a play to a book. And I was writing it, and my friend Ivory was going to be the illustrator. And so the teacher warned me several times to stop and leave it alone. I couldn't. I got caught up in characters. And so she took my book. I don't think she ever gave that particular one back, but that's okay. I wrote more throughout the middle school and high school year. So I think it transitioned to poetry more so in high school. So prior to that, it was short stories and plays. So I think writing has been a first love and poetry more solidly, definitely in high school. And I think that may have been because I went to a boarding school and I was a minority on multiple levels at that particular boarding school. So I think that helped me process that. And it also was a very strong transition for me because I went from being in a predominantly Black community to a predominantly white community, an international community. And so I was learning a lot culturally about varied cultures. So poetry started to help me understand Blackness, understand cultures, understand myself, because, being a teenage girl in America or anywhere, there's so many emotions. And I think it really was an opportunity to explore identity, femininity, class, race, religion. So it was just a way to write it out. And for me and my journals, it was my safe space to write it out. Then eventually I shared a couple um, in school things. So
What's
it
your
was,
poet name, Dr. Stocks?
I'm so sorry,
What's your poet name, Dr. Stocks?
lyric.
Okay. And in thinking about your journey as a writer and the different expressions, you said short stories, plays, poetry, and the fact that you're creating more time now for your practice. Are you working on any projects?
Currently, life is very busy, so not my I'm slowly working on my personal business, which is just my name, Shawntay Stocks LLC. Um, so in that business, I use poetry, I do workshops about community engagement as well as justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. But in terms of active work, it will be more my work with my sister docs on Sister Docs Exhale. And that gives me a space to center Black women, Black women's stories and experiences, because it's often celebrated in social culture about the work that Black women do in our community, what we did in the last election, what we do community-wise, what we do in our churches. And it's like, okay, that is great, but we are not superwomen. I know that old trope is something like, the Black superwoman. No, right? We are sensitive. We are expressive. We need spaces where we can center ourselves so that we can center our voices. And so creating those opportunities where we can be us and support us, I think is so important in Black women mental health. And so I love listening and learning from and with Black women, because being a JEDI practitioner, sometimes Blackness gets lost in terms like diversity or person of color and all of that. And it's the beauty of all the experiences. But self-reflection is so important. And a part of self-reflection is being able to name what we are experiencing, being able to center ourselves. It's not selfish to delve into self, to learn about self, to reflect on self. And all too often, people try to make learning about who we are, celebrating who we are, naming our experiences as selfish and self-centered. It is not. It's only seeming that way to people who have been the center for so long. So if we want to take up some space, if we want to celebrate self, that is so important. And it also is refueling for the work that we have to continue to do. So I think a part of my art that I've come to love more to share is not being afraid to say that, even though in the current space of DEI work, when folks are saying that DEI is DEIE, that DEI must die or that DEI is dead, it's like, no, it isn't. The work isn't dead. People are tired. People are exacerbated because of what they see. I think I used the wrong word, but people are tired and overexhausted from the work that has to continue. But I think that in the last several years or more, being able to stand up in Black womanness, stand up in Blackness has really been important in my work, and not being afraid to say it and to name it and to take up space. So for the poetry work that I do, looking at it lovingly and say, you know what, it's okay. I can do this. So it's okay to do this. Because for so long, it was like, yes, 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 Blackness is inside of diversity. Yes, but no, we get to center ourselves. We get to name ourselves. We get to speak for ourselves and share our experiences. And that shouldn't be seen as dangerous or othered. It should just be seen as necessary, that people get to celebrate who they are without other people feeling threatened.
Well said. Well said. I totally agree with all of this sentiments that you just expressed. So in thinking about the ways in which you're evolving as an artist, as a practitioner, where can we find you in the public space? So if someone wants to book you for a workshop, for example, book you to teach how to use poetry as a form of engagement, where can folks find you?
So I am on Twitter, and I had to look for my Twitter handle. I am at Katie, KAYTI 76 on Twitter, and I am on Facebook, just under my given name. And then I am on IG similarly at Dr. Shawntay Stocks.
Are you also on LinkedIn?
Yes, also under my given name.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Stocks. I'm looking forward to seeing your poetry when you do share it again with the public and being in space with you again. So thank you again, sis, for sharing your journeys on reflection, on love during the season of your life. Thank you, sisters, supporters, and sponsors for listening to the Lirae Journey podcast. And as always, love is real and eternal. In community, peace.
Peace.
Hey sis, subscribe, comment, and leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed the show. To encourage other sisters on their journey, share the show with them and tag at Lirae Journey on Facebook and Instagram. I'll see you in the chats. Listen to the Lirae Journey podcast on all platforms and follow us on social media at Lirae Journey. You can also find us online at podcast.mckissickhealth.com. That's podcast.mckissickhealth.com. So come on in.